Joining us now, Reform UK MP for East Wiltshire, Danny Kruger. Danny, a scheme described as gullible and easy to exploit. Your thoughts?
Well, it does look like that. I mean, let's acknowledge the initial idea, which was to bring in soldiers who'd worked closely with British forces to be relocated to the UK, and that was supported by the British military and by many of us, including myself, a member of Parliament for a major military garrison here in Wiltshire. But what we've seen, I'm afraid, is abuse of the system. I'm not satisfied that the appropriate vetting was done. And the threat is obviously real to many people. I'm afraid, there are many people still in Afghanistan who are under threat, who probably should qualify for the scheme. But many, many thousands have been brought here who, I'm afraid to say, on the evidence we have, look like they shouldn't have been brought. And I'm glad to say the government has now suspended this scheme. They've closed these relocation routes, even though we're still having thousands more people come, including the group who were identified in that leak of a data set some years ago, which I strongly regret. So I'm afraid the scheme as a whole hasn't been well managed, and I think people in Wiltshire and across the country are right to be asking questions about who is coming to live among us and how these mistakes were made.
Yeah, it's a challenge as you've laid out there, isn't it? Because there are people with very legitimate cases who helped the UK in risk of their own lives. You then have the challenge that there is that data leak that potentially threatened the lives further and made the situation much more complex, a situation that was then rectified to some degree in secrecy as a result of those government and court orders. It feels as though, yeah, best efforts were made, but gaps were left open at the same time.
Well, I think it does demand that we question the whole scheme from the outset. Really, is it appropriate to fly back to our country, allies, in a war that we lost together? I understood and I supported at the time the principle. I expected it to be a very small number of people who'd really served very closely with our forces, particularly special forces who'd done very serious work on behalf of the alliance coalition forces in Afghanistan. What we've seen, though, is tens of thousands of people, many of them with a very tenuous link to our forces and their families, of course. So in each case, each soldier or interpreter or whoever it is has the right to bring, in some cases, literally dozens of people. I mean, very large extended families. I think we actually have to question the validity of the scheme as a whole, even if the initial principle and all of our hearts went out to those soldiers who'd put themselves at risk to help us. But I'm afraid even if the principle was right for a number of people, it's clear that the scheme as a whole was badly managed. And you talk about that leak of a data set. Actually, these were all people they were basically chancers. They'd applied to the scheme on claiming to have worked with our forces. They'd been rejected from the scheme. That's what the list was. When that list was accidentally leaked, there was a great panic in Whitehall, and the decision was taken, let's bring them all here, thousands of people. I think that was regrettable, and the government has done an inquiry of its own more recently and concluded that there was no particular additional risk to those people because this data set was accidentally emailed out of the British Army. So that turned out to have been a mistake as well. And listen, there are many people in our country who are in urgent need of the services that these Afghans are receiving: housing, healthcare, education, welfare. We are supporting tens of thousands of people at public expense, while our constituents are really struggling. And here in Wiltshire, we have a problem with housing. We have a problem for military families not having the housing that they are entitled to. And while I fully understand and respect and frankly admire the willingness of the army and our military communities to welcome Afghans here, I really feel overall we've been badly let down. And I think it is appropriate now to be asking questions about whether the scheme was right in the first place.
MP for East Wiltshire joining us live. Danny Kruger, thanks for your time. Appreciated.